Speaking of optimism, I'm sure Dolphins and fans have Week 8 circled on their calendar because you got next. Tua Tagovailoa is set to return after missing multiple weeks with a concussion there. You see it there from Week 2. Head coach Mike McDaniel told the team that Tua will participate in practice on Wednesday when his practice window is open for QB1 down there in South Florida. For more on this, and Tua and the Dolphins want to bring in our lead NFL insider, Jonathan Jones, with this news. And JB, all eyes will be on Tua when he returns. And you've talked about this with that practice window set to open. What do they need to see before we get to Sunday?
So he has to get through concussion protocol, and I don't think that there is a great concern that he won't pass through protocol. Essentially, because he has been on injured reserve the last 4 weeks, part of the concussion protocol is football practice, that you have to go through a practice before you ultimately are cleared. And so because he's been on injured reserve and cannot go through practice, he has not cleared concussion protocol. But I do not believe that there are very many worries or concerns insofar as having worries and concerns about the multiple head injuries that he has had and sustained over the years. So he should practice this week. As long as things are fine, he should start on Sunday against the Arizona Cardinals. That is what they will be looking for. That is all clear signs that he is good to go. So, you know, you can go back and wonder if they should have placed him on IR, if he could have been ready before this week. Certainly those questions we'll certainly never know really in those hypotheticals, but the Miami Dolphins did not want to put a timeline on Tua in those first few weeks. They felt that the easiest, safest, best thing for him, for the football team in general, was to place him on injured reserve. And so that is why we are seeing him now eligible to practice this week. We should see him practice this week. And again, so long as everything goes as everyone hopes, he should be the starter for the Miami Dolphins on Sunday.
Injuries have been a part of Tua's career there in Miami. We can say the same thing for Deshaun Watson. Going down to yesterday, many fearing could be a season-ending injury. What's the latest on him you're hearing?
Yeah, I don't really think that there's any doubt, and there hasn't really been any doubt ever since the injury, that this will be a season ender for Deshaun Watson with the Achilles. Of course, they had to run the official test today, but there's no doubt when you see that, you know what it is. It's a difficult, obviously a very difficult injury for Watson. I would say that he should be ready no matter what procedure he gets, be it the speed bridge procedure that Aaron Rodgers got or the regular old Achilles repair that Kirk Cousins got, for example. He should be ready for week 1. I can take you back to last year. Kirk Cousins tore his Achilles in week 8, was ready for week 1. Didn't really look like himself in week 1, but was able to start for the Atlanta Falcons. This, of course, is week 7 in the NFL. What it means for Deshaun Watson's future with the Cleveland Browns, well, look, he's going to very likely be on the roster in 2025 because no one is going to trade for Deshaun Watson. Cutting him is far too cost prohibitive, and so one has to imagine that come September of next year, whether he's the starter or not, he should be on the roster for the Cleveland Browns because there is no good alternative for the Browns if they wish to part with him. I would anticipate, because of Dorian Thompson-Robinson's injury that he suffered backing up Deshaun Watson yesterday, that Jameis Winston would likely be the starter this week. Look, they really liked what they saw out of DTR in the preseason and through practice, and that was the reason why Dorian Thompson-Robinson, the second-year quarterback, wound up being QB2 yesterday, whereas Jameis Winston had been up until week 7. So I would anticipate Jameis Winston being the starter. And look, the Browns now have every option on the table for them as it relates to the quarterback position in 2025. Could they go out and draft a quarterback? Absolutely. Could they sign a quarterback at a low cost? Absolutely. And they have the cover to do it because of this serious season-ending injury to Deshaun Watson. So again, I would anticipate that he'll be on the Browns next year, in large part because he can't really go anywhere else.
Browns is something to think about. 1-6, as you mentioned there, when it comes to that QB situation. The Niners still kind of in that conversation when you talk about playoffs, but the latest injury that they just suffered, their number 1 wide receiver, Brandon Ayuk, some assuming it's an ACL. Again, we have to wait until he undergoes tests today. But what's the latest you're hearing out west on Ayuk?
Yeah, certainly the fear is the ACL of the right knee for Brandon Ayuk. Obviously, that's a very difficult one for him and for this Niners team. He got that big contract in the offseason, in the preseason. They were expecting big things from him. And so now they have Ricky Pearsall, who he's going to have to get worked into football shape, made his debut as a rookie just yesterday against the Kansas City Chiefs. Hopefully, Jawan Jennings gets a little healthier. You're ultimately going to see Christian McCaffrey. If it's not after the bye, it could be this week against the Dallas Cowboys if a week of practice goes well for him as he continues to recover from that Achilles tendonitis. And then you have Deebo Samuel, who was battling an illness on Sunday against the Chiefs. If he were ever to have been on the trade block for the San Francisco 49ers, you have to remove him from the trade block now because the Niners, with championship aspirations, certainly need him now that Brandon Ayuk is down, need him more than they did perhaps a couple of days ago. So that's where things stand for the Niners. Look, at this point, I can't really see them being real buyers in the wide receiver trade market just because of where their assets are tied up, where they are in terms of the cap. Could they go and add someone sort of down the roster? Perhaps. But some of those top names at wide receiver, I don't think so.
We'll see what happens there with the Niners. As you mentioned, of course, that trade deadline November 5th. As always, Jonathan Jones giving us everything we need from Week 7, of course. But we're not done with the week because we have a doubleheader Monday night with the Ravens heading to Tampa to take on the Buccaneers. That at 8:15. Then the Chargers head to Arizona to take on the Cardinals at 9 p.m. Eastern tonight.